Hello, everyone. Let's see. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna wait a few more minutes to let everyone roll in. I wanted to make a poll to see how many people are interested in a demo. See, let's give it a try. The question is, let's see, demo of onboarding process. Okay, let's see how this poll works. And yeah, if you don't know what it's talking about, feel free to answer later. I'm gonna wait like one more minute and then I guess we can get started. Okay, let's get going. Thanks to everyone who is here. So last week we did an introductory talk about doing Google Summer of Code, and today I just want to do an office hour and give a chance for people to ask questions and make sure to point people to materials from last time. Oh, and very importantly, the space is going to be following the type level code of conduct. So when you use the Q&A or engage in any way, please follow the type level code of conduct. And oh yes, so I mentioned that last week we did an introductory presentation, and that's on YouTube now. And so if you haven't watched it already, I definitely recommend going to see that because it's going to cover a lot of things that I didn't want to repeat today. But it's about what type level is, what functional programming is, what doing GSoC with type level is like. We do a demo of contributing to the onboarding repository. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. So definitely watch it if you haven't. And you can just search type level on YouTube and it should be there. And oh yes, so this is the onboarding repository that I mentioned. Many people have already contributed. The idea is you add a little HTML component built using Calico, which is a type level project. So you can sort of add your GitHub handle to this getting to be very long table of contents. And then once you've done that, then you can create a little component, and it totally varies about how far you want to take it. Some people do, like this one I like is like just adding circles, like polka dots. And some people have gone, this is from one of our org admins, Antonio. He made a whole snake game. So there's a lot of opportunity to sort of take that in different directions. But the important thing for this onboarding process is mostly we're just interested to see you download the tooling, do your first contribution, agree to follow our policies, go through the whole PR process. That's what's most important. When this is not a competition, we're not rating people about how interesting or complex or fun your component is. Yeah, it's just a way for us to get to know each other. And let's see. Oh yes, so I wanted to go over some requirements and deadlines. So we are requiring that everyone agrees to the type level code of conduct. And also we have I should have said, it's a type level GSoC AI policy. So we have a specific AI policy for GSoC contributors. And we are requiring everyone contribute a component to that onboarding repository that I just showed. And that's actually due by Monday, March 16th. So that's about 1 week from today. So you have to do the onboarding by then to be considered for the rest of the application process. Because also importantly, on March 16 is when contributor registration opens on the Google Summer of Code web portal. So at that time, it will now be possible to submit a project proposal. And project proposals are due a couple weeks later, by March 31st. And so if you want to have a successful proposal, it's important to send a draft of it to your mentors ahead of time. And that doesn't mean like 1 hour or 1 day, but ideally like a week before, so that we have a chance to look at it and hopefully give you some feedback. I can't promise because there are a lot of applicants this year, and we'll do our best. But yeah, the sooner you can send us a draft, we're definitely happy to take a look at it, and we'll try and give feedback if possible. And I also want to mention it's not required, but like optionally, it would be great to explore making contributions to some other type level projects, doing like some small 1 or 2 PRs. Like really, as I was saying, there's so many applicants. We're overwhelmed with things to look at, and on top of our usual open source maintainer work and our lives and stuff. So really, it just 1 or 2 small PRs is fine. Just again, so that we get a little chance to get to know you, so that we see you going through the process. We get to engage with you doing like a PR review or something. Like that's all. That's perfect. We don't need large complex PRs that we honestly won't have time to be able to review right now anyway. And you can also not worry about that too much until after March 16th. That's when we're going to sort of focus more on the next phase of the application cycle. And then, oh yeah, so I did the poll. Let's see if anyone wants a demo. Oh, we do want a demo. Well, I did a poll, but I see thumbs up, so it sounds like people want a demo. So we can do a small demo of contributing to the onboarding repository. Let's see. So I'm gonna change my share to all right, so what I've done here is I've pulled up our onboarding repository in VS Code, which is one of the recommended IDEs for working with Scala. So first, the important thing is before you do any work on it is to make sure you have the build tooling installed. So you want to have SBT installed, and you should be able to pull it up. I'm going to give it a minute. Okay, there we go. Looks like I'm using Java 25. I can't remember. I think we're supporting like Java. We're recommending Java 21 and newer. But yeah, anything like that should be fine. Sorry, it's taking a second for some reason. I actually don't know what update SBT classifier is doing. Oh, it's setting up the IDE. That's what the bloop is part of the build server. Okay, hopefully it'll be ready in a second. Okay, there we go. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start the build server using just the serve command. And so that's actually going to start a build server at the link that will be there. So hopefully I can pull this up in VS Code. Let's see if it works. No, I know VS Code has a browser. I know I did this once before. Sorry, everyone. Hang on for a second. I know there's a way to do it. There it is. Open integrated browser. There we go. So now we're going to copy this into here. Okay. And now let's see if we can put these side by side. Oh, there we go. Okay. Excellent. So you should be able to pull up the link in your browser and already see a preview of the onboarding web page because the repository compiles to this interactive web page. So yeah, and then you can even start playing with, like, for example, if you want to play the snake game, like here it is. Already lost. So you can have a look at other people's components. Here's mine, which tells you my favorite programming language. And there's also this special check order button, which is important because there's a very special secret ordering to the names. And so, yeah, the way you check that it's correct is by doing that, by pushing this button. And so, okay, so what you want to do is you will want to contribute your own component to the repository. And there's directions in the README, which I'm going to pull up now. And so we can even just use start with this. So there's an example of what a little component can look like. So I'm just going to start by copying this into a file. So we can make a component for a new contributor. And we can say, I'm going to call it Toolkitty. Toolkitty is one of the Scala mascots. So I've created this new file in this contributors directory. And I'm just going to paste in that little demo there. There we go. And yes, so then this is where you would build your component. And I see all the highlighting is kicking in. And then so you can name it after your GitHub handle. So this is a hypothetical toolkitty. And then you can build out the component as you wish. But at the very least, it should say who you are, what your GitHub handle is, and that you agree to follow the type level code of conduct and our AI policy. And then there's a lot of, you can get creative. As you've seen, there's like many, many different things you can do. And then what you want to do is you want to add yourself to this grand list. So the way you do that is, there's this file called all, which has got all the contributors in here. So we can just start by putting ourselves somewhere in the middle. So I don't know, I guess Toolkitty might go like somewhere around here. And then, the other thing I didn't show is you might want to actually start doing the way you compile the Scala code here into the JavaScript, which is what's running in the browser when you're interacting with the web app, is use this command fastlink.js. So we can just run it once like this, and it'll compile the code to JavaScript. But there's also a way to start it in a watch mode, so that it keeps recompiling automatically. But let's give it a second to run. I'm going to check in the meantime if there were any questions in the Q&A. Apologies if I missed it to this point. I don't see any questions, but yeah, if you have any question, feel free to ask in the Q&A. Okay. Let's see. I hope everyone's systems are at least a little bit faster than mine. So let's give it still another, I don't know, 10 seconds, 1 minute. What do we think it'll need? So part of the onboarding process is figuring out where's the special place in the lists that your name is supposed to go. Because there's sort of a secret order to figure out where your name is supposed to go. And that's what the check onboarding button is supposed to help with. This is taking an awfully long time. I'm gonna cancel it and try again because it's suspiciously slow. Okay, so I'm actually gonna do clean. Okay, so we're just starting from scratch. And then let's try again to do fastlink. Oh, I didn't think about it, but I guess this repository has gotten kind of big because a lot of people have added code to it. Well, I guess maybe it will take a little bit of time to compile. Well, okay. Well, this was sort of the main. This was sort of the main ideas of how to contribute, and I hope that my system is just being unusually slow because of the Google Meet happening at the same time. So I guess while we wait for this, I'll take Q&A, and then we can finish out the demo. Okay, I see there's a question. Okay, it says from Maladi, all good with onboarding, some issues. Okay, from Abby. For proposals, how's preferred to send? The best way to send the proposal is to do like a Google Doc or something, because Google Docs are easy to view and easy to share. It's a shareable link, and it's also easy for us to comment on. So yeah, and then you can either, so once you have a Google Doc with sort of like the outline of your proposal, then you can share that with us either by DM or email or whatever your preferred way is to contact us. You know, does that answer the question? Other questions? Let's see what's happening. Is it still compiling? Oh, no, okay, good. Finished compiling. Now it's doing so there's two phases. The first phase is compiling the Scala code to an intermediate format. And then the next phase is compiling that intermediate format to the JavaScript. So progress. Any other questions in the meantime? My question is it this slow for everybody? Okay, well, if there aren't more questions, we can hang on a couple more minutes just to give, oh, maybe one more question came in. Oh, yes, a question about proposal guidelines. Oh, and I see our compilation finished, but I'll answer the question first. We don't have any specific requirements besides what Google Summer of Code requires itself. Let me see if I can link that proposal. Yeah, they have their own guide about how to write a proposal. Yeah, I will put that in the chat here. And yeah, actually in there, you know, I can even share. Let me switch my share to that. Yeah, so I just dropped this link in the chat, but they have a guide about how to write a proposal. And yep, you can just follow this guideline. This is what we're looking for, which is the main ideas of the proposal is that it should say what the goals of the project are, and it should show that you sort of thought about it, like how are you going to approach the project, how are you going to break it down into steps, and you write up a timeline saying like, okay, like these couple weeks I'm going to work on this step, then these couple weeks I'm going to work on this next step, and then, you know, by the midterm I'll have like this done because of all these stuff. And like for us, the point of the timeline is not to be strict. We're not going to be like holding you accountable to the timeline where we're like, oh, you didn't use your timeline said this, you didn't get it done. We understand that sometimes things take longer than we expect. Maybe some things will go faster than you expect. Maybe some steps will need to be adjusted. No, the point of the proposal is just to show that you've thought about it, you've broken down the project into concrete steps so that you'll know where to start when the project begins. And the other thing is, we don't necessarily expect you to come up with this on your own. That's why you can start sending the drafts to us sooner, the drafts of your proposals sooner than later, and you can ask us questions about the project in Discord or GitHub. We want to help you write good proposals. We want to help you break down the projects. That's what part of the learning process is. So yeah, you don't have to figure it out all by yourself. We want to work with you to create a proposal for the project. That will be basically a guideline that we will roughly follow throughout the summer. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. more questions? Okay. So yeah, I think you can start writing the proposal already. So like for the immutable list data type, yeah, the project does, yeah, we can talk a bit more on Discord about the project. The project does have like a specific issue. And for that project in particular, the linked list project, it does sort of have some unknowns of breaking it down, and we can talk about that. But I'll actually talk a bit about it now, which is, so the point of this project is to implement this idea that one of the type level tests maintainers had, which is taking this sort of like linked list as sort of a very core data structure, like in computer science specifically, sorry, in computer science broadly, and also specifically to functional programming. There's a type of like the immutable linked list is like one of like the simple canonical data structures. So the idea of this project is making sort of a small change to the way, to the traditional linked list, that would hopefully unlock some performance benefits. And so the very like high level sketch of what that would look like, which is sort of, you know, a linked list is like, it's got nodes, and each node is like links to the next one. So like this data in each node, and then the next datum in the list is linked to by the node. So you've got like this linked structure. And the idea is basically, what if instead of having to always hop to the next node in the link to find the next item in the list, the next data, what if we did it in batches, where each node actually contains a few items, and then so you can actually iterate first by staying in a node before having to hop to the same node. So it's about sort of this, what the project really gets at is like this trade-off between memory locality and memory pressure. Or I guess it's very complicated, but it's about sort of exploiting something we call mechanical sympathy, which is it's thinking about how memory is actually represented on the computer. And in general, that is, it's faster to access memory that is like literally next to you than it is to like follow a link to some other random point in memory. So that's the high level idea of the high level view to the project is to take the traditional linked list data structure, introduce this sort of this chunking by having each node possibly contain more than one item. And then from there, it's basically like following that thread, which is, you know, you can think about all the different methods that a list may need to have. Like you want methods for adding things to the list. You want methods for like going through every item in the list and like transforming it somehow. So then the project becomes about implementing all of these things for your new list type. So what I would recommend for this project is you can take a look at, you can look at actually, like, you can start by looking at the linked list in Scala itself. That's part of the Scala standard library. There's a lot of material on the internet about linked lists. Specifically, you should look at immutable functional linked lists. There's the book Functional Programming in Scala. That one, in one of the introductory chapters, I forget, it's like chapter 2 or something, it actually walks you through implementing sort of the traditional linked list. So the idea is like to go through that same process of implementing a linked list, except you're implementing this special linked list that has got this special like chunking representation. And then, yeah, and the project actually has a lot of flexibility about like how deep you want to go and like how much time you have. Like it can be a small project, beginner. It can be like a long advanced project where you really do like in-depth benchmarking and are trying to like build, this like production ready data type. But the goal of this project is really to be a learning experience where you learn about how to implement a data structure, and all these different things in the type level ecosystem that help us implement data structures. So type classes, all these different methods on data structures. Yeah. So yeah, I would recommend, if you even want to like start drafting the proposal, you can you can just start by writing about like what linked list is. You can look at this issue and talk about why we want to try this different representation, and then you can start writing out some steps about like, well, okay, so I looked at like the linked list, the traditional linked list in the Scala standard library. I saw that these are some important methods on it, like for iterating or adding and things like that. And like these are the kinds of methods that I'm going to add to my version of the linked list. Another step you can add on your timeline is benchmarking, things like that. So yeah, very long answer, but yeah, feel free to ask more on Discord, and please, yeah, start even just bullet pointing a rough proposal and send it to us, and we can look at it and give some pointers. Yeah. Okay, I rambled for like 8 minutes about linked lists, but they're fun to talk about. That's a good project. Any other projects that people want to ask about? Okay, let's see if let's see what's going on with my little component thing. All right, so finally finished, and I'm gonna reload here. So let's see if Toolkitty showed up. You know, it's kind of annoying. I think there's also caching, which, yeah, you might need to reload the page without caching, because I think that this is just cached a JavaScript, and so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to serve in again. So it's starting another server. Let's go to this new link, which won't be cached. There we go, Toolkitty. And you can see it's here. Excellent. And we can also see if the order is, yeah, you see the order is not quite right. Toolkitty should be before AP. So we already know that Toolkitty should move at least one up. And yeah, we don't want to make busy work for you figuring out where your name goes. So sort of the pro tip here is you can do something called a binary search, which is you can start by putting your name in the middle and seeing whether it should go up or down. And then instead of moving it up by one, you can move it like halfway up here, and you should gradually, be able to narrow your way down, sort of cutting out half the positions at once. Let's see. Okay, oh, great. Some questions about Leica. Let's see. Leica's, yeah, the Typelevel website does not use SBT, but uses Scala CLI. Yes, yes. So Scala CLI is a project from Scala itself, or specifically from Virtus Lab, which is an organization supporting Scala. So it's not strictly a Typelevel project, but let's see. Wondering, does improving Leica for blog use Typelevel site project scope to use case of Scala? CLI doesn't need to work for SBT2. So again, so I would say broadly, all of our project ideas are just ideas, and what that means is that the project doesn't become a project. The project idea doesn't become a project until you sort of you choose what you actually want to do. So I'll talk a little bit about this like a Typelevel website project too, which is Leica is this website is a tool for documenting. Leica is a tool for generating HTML websites and also ebooks and other things from markdown files, and it's written using Scala. It's written using Typelevel ecosystem, cats, and all these things. And we ourselves use the project in two important ways. One of them is that we have a plugin for SBT called SBT Typelevel, and we ship Leica to all of our different projects through that plugin. So this is how all the like different, or not all, but most of the different like documentation sites, like per project documentation sites, on across the entire like Typelevel organization, and also like many other Scala projects across our sort of open source ecosystem, they're all using Leica to turn their documentation into a website. So that's one of the important ways that Leica gets sort of used by us. And then the other way is we did recently migrate typelevel.org to use Leica as well. And that's a little bit different because that's more bespoke. Like it's not about like, in the other cases, we want to have like a convenient way for Leica to document, an existing project or something. But in this case, like it's building a website for Typelevel as a whole. And so that's why we chose to use Scala CLI build instead of SBT, because it's not a traditional project. We're not creating a library and publishing it for other people to use. We're just building a website. So that's a bit different. So basically, this project can go in many, many different directions, which is we'd love to see enhancements to Leica, and we'd love to see enhancements to our websites, whether it's a documentation website or like our actual like typelevel.org landing web page. And so basically any work that you do either on Leica directly or maybe working on like one of these integrations specifically will improve our websites, will improve things for other people as well. So, for example, like, we got the Typelevel website like migrated onto Leica, but like along the way, like we did discover like, different like corners, cases, or things that, maybe weren't originally thought of. Like when Leica was originally designed, Leica is very good at like doing project documentation, for getting it to like generate a blog and with like an RSS feed and like things like that. It's maybe a little bit less, there's more work to be done that would improve that use case. So for example, if you do look at that Scala CLI build for the Typelevel website, there's a lot of stuff in there that is kind of like somewhere between like adding new features and sometimes, a little bit of like hackery to get things to work. So we would love to see some of these ideas like maybe a little bit more baked and implemented more directly in Leica, or maybe some sort of separate like module for Leica that's specifically for blogs. So like that's like an area you can go in. There's also a lot of improvements we'd like to make to the Typelevel like website itself. And while working in Leica directly might be helpful to fix some things, there's also a lot of features that can, because Leica is so customizable, the same way we've already customized it to support some of these features, there's customizations we can do too inside of our own build to support some of these other things. Like again, like the example of the blog, like right now, if you go to like the blog, you get like all the blogs as one long page, and like it would be really cool to have like pagination or something, right? So it's all about like finding these different ways to improve like the user experience for the website and figuring out how to implement that with Leica. And yeah, that might be working in Leica itself. That might be working in one of these integrations. And yeah, similar thing for like the documentation websites too. I think there's various ways they could be improved. Like actually, one of them is another good example is like right now we have this really cool search feature for the Typelevel website, and that's also another Typelevel adjacent project called Proto Search. So it's like Scala code that's powering that search. It would be really cool to roll out search to all of our documentation websites. Like we sort of prototyped it out for typelevel.org. And it would be really cool to actually ship that same feature to all the different documentation, all the different project documentations that are using Leica. So yeah, so actually the place to do that work would be in the SBT Typelevel build, because that's sort of where the integration is happening between the project build and Leica. You would be able to bring in search. So there's basically all these different directions to go in, and so yeah, the scope is what you choose to do, like what you're interested in working on. Like maybe you are very inspired to like, you're like, oh yeah, I can see the website, I can see the work that needs to be done, and so like I want to focus on like doing things that improve the Typelevel website, and then making the changes wherever they need to be made for that to happen. Or another direction could be like focusing on like the Leica build itself and being like, sorry, on the Leica project itself, and working through these different like different feature requests or bug reports that have sort of come up while we're using Leica out in the world. And so those things will also be helpful. And it's not necessarily about like directly improving our website or looking at our website and like, oh yeah, let's add this new thing, let's add this new thing. But it's like actually working through a backlog of all these issues we've already encountered, and maybe, you know, so that's actually very, very valuable work too. So it's all about sort of what kind of space you like to work in, what kind of project you like to work in, what inspires you. Okay. So hopefully those are some answers for your questions. Oh yeah, some advice about drafting the proposal. I think hopefully these are enough ideas to sort of give you, yeah. So again, like the proposal can sort of go in the direction you're interested in. So however you're interested in you know, however you're interested to whatever you're interested in being like sort of the inspiration for your project, whether it's sort of fixing these existing things or like improving the existing website, like that's the kind of thing you can put into your proposal. And it could be a bit mix of both too. Okay, I'm gonna look at the next question, which is about Calico. Yes, so Calico is yes, is actually the project that everyone's been using here. So Calico is a type level project that lets you build web apps, and it's using Scala's JavaScript compiler. So there's a project called Scala.js, which enables you to compile Scala code like this to JavaScript, and that's how come we're able to run it in the browser. And so Calico is basically this. I describe Calico as really just like a DSL, like a domain-specific language. And what this means is that Calico isn't really Calico isn't doing very much. It's sort of adding sort of special syntax for using existing type-level libraries like Cat's Effect and FS2 to conveniently put together sites. So like, for example, we look at like, or even if we like look at the main, so like we have like these HTML looking things like the div and the H1 and the button and the on click. Like this is what Calico is giving us. Calico is giving us this like special syntax, which makes it easy to create some sort of web app in a reasonable way. But all of like the stuff that's actually powering this behind the scenes, like this is just magic syntax that behind the scenes is Cats and Cat's Effect and FS2. And there are a few small things in Calico like that are like very distinct features that are more than syntax. Like for example, like this routing thing. The routing is like what powers, you know, what controls, you know, when you click on someone's name and like you see their component come up, that's powered by sort of this routing capability. And so like that's like a distinct feature that Calico introduces, which is a bit more than syntax. Coming back to the project, so again, there's many things that can be improved with Calico. In fact, somebody recently put up a tutorial of how to use Calico with Electron, and they have a bunch of feedback from using Calico in that situation, and they have a write-up. So there's things that can be done there. The project idea that I put on the GSoC ideas page is about adding support for these things called web components. So, you know, many sort of existing ecosystems, like, you know, there's like the React ecosystem and I don't know, all these other big, like, what is it, Vue, Angular, all these JavaScript ecosystems, like they have so many people that just like make components, really great component packages like directly for them. And we just, we don't have that kind of power to like be maintaining like all these like components directly made with like Calico and things like that. But what's really cool is in recent-ish years, maybe it's now been several years, this concept of web components was introduced is like a web standard. And so the idea is that instead of like being like, oh, I'm building websites with React or Vue, and I'm going to use a React component or a Vue component, the internet now has a standard concept of like what it means to be a web component, which is, you know, something that's like does more than, something trivial. Like a lot of these things are like, like the basic HTML is like very, very trivial things like buttons and things. But like sometimes you want like maybe you like I want a web component, which is like I don't know, like an interactive calendar, all these different things that can be sort of encapsulated as sort of a component that has all this like different interaction capability and does these different things. So it's really cool that there's this new standard, new-ish standard, I guess it's been around for a while, of web components. And I would really like Calico to integrate with this better because it will suddenly open our door to make it really easy to use these different components inside Calico apps and yeah, basically give us all these different features and things. So yeah, so the project is sort of sketching out how we might improve that integration, because it is possible currently. I think it's linked to, there's a Calico material repository, which sort of like explores with like what material web components could look like in Calico. But yeah, basically it leaves a bit to be desired. And yeah, I would say this is a little bit more of a tricky project. But yeah, I think there's some sketches of like how we might approach it. Sort of, it comes down to sort of redefining the syntax, which is, yeah, it's again like very interesting. Like overall, the experience of using Calico should not change, because like this is a pretty reasonable and standard way of like defining things. Also, like especially in the Scala ecosystem, which has got many different UI building libraries besides Calico. So like this general experience shouldn't change too much. We just want to be able to bring it to web components as well. And so in order to do that successfully, because web components work differently from like ordinary HTML elements, it's about finding a way to support the same syntax for all these different web components. So that's basically what I would say is like the main idea of the project is how do we give like the same first class support that these standard HTML things have, like this button or like this div, how do we bring that same first class support that standard HTML things have to web components, and along the way hopefully make it easy for users to define web components based on these existing libraries and things like that. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, we're getting to the last few minutes. Thank you everyone for being here. Thanks for the questions, and yeah, feel free to start asking some things on Discord too. I apologize like for sometimes being not so responsive, because yeah, it's it's just a lot, but like we are eager to we're eager to help you all contribute. And yeah, it's better for us when like things come in small doses. Like we appreciate you coming here, we appreciate the questions, we appreciate like the small doses and patience, and like as we get as sort of some of the deadlines approach, we're gonna be yeah, sort of honing in and making sure that we're helping you sort of get the proposals ready. And yeah, it's a process, and things don't have to be perfect. Like what matters more to us than you crafting a perfect proposal is did you come to our community? Did you show up in our community in a way that like feels good, that feels like that you're participating and sharing our values, and showing genuine interest in the projects, and yeah, being creative. It's challenging because, as all of you know, like AIs have gotten like very good, and I have, it's sometimes hard to tell like who's showing up and like who's sort of just a human agent that's, when suddenly we find ourselves speaking to like an LLM or something, which is discouraging for us. So we appreciate all of you who are like really engaging with us, who are being patient and keep showing up. And yeah, we see you. We're just sort of waiting for some of the noise to hopefully die down. And yeah, and we look forward to working with you. Oh, question about dark mode. Okay, maybe one more question. Yes, oh yeah, this was a good one. Yeah, for Leica, the dark mode toggle. Yeah, I don't know. I I didn't go into it in depth. If you read the issue, it links to another issue where some uh another programming language's web toolkit or something was adding, I don't know, a documentation. Anyway, something was trying to add a dark mode toggle, and there's a discussion there about whether it's okay or not okay, and it's yeah, it it just doesn't seem like it's a nice to have feature, but like I think for me, like a really important factor here, and actually I feel like this is a good lesson, and like open source is more than like just like the code and stuff. It's like so for people who don't know GDPR, actually I'm not super familiar, but I'm pretty sure it's some EU, it's European Union privacy laws regarding to internet. So we don't basically we're not in a silo. We do have to we when we write code here, we have to think about the ramifications, legal, but also like those laws exist because there are privacy ramifications and things. So yeah, so that's something to think about. And oh, and then the other thing that for me is an important factor is that the way Leica is used is sort of we ship it out to like lots of projects as part of like SPT Typelevel. So there's a lot of projects that sort of get Leica, for free because they're using SPT Typelevel. They're using it to compile their library and run tests and publish it to, Maven and to publish a documentation website. So whatever choice we end up making, it's not, it's not just, it's going to like end up going out on like tons of projects, hundreds of projects or something that are all using Leica. So it's just a little bit of hesitation to like suddenly like put this like local storage thing, which may or may not be legal, out on so many different websites without them really being prepared or expecting it or something. I guess all this to say, like a lot of people are using Leica, like very like sort of like I almost want to say passively or something like it is the tool that comes with their build tool, and it just helps them build a website. And it's not like they're basically not a Leica power user. They're not like, oh yeah, I'm definitely using Leica, like I'm doing all these Leica customizations and things. No, a lot of people I think are using it because it's sort of what's coming. It's what's coming with Typelevel, with SPT Typelevel. So yeah, so because of that, I don't want to. I'm trying to be thoughtful about like how the change, how whatever decision we make will affect all of these users who might not be tuned in and following all these details of what's happening in the Leica repository. So yes, so that's I think that for me is the other reason to be like, okay, I don't think based on the prior discussions about other open source developers deciding that it's probably better to lean on the side of like not using local storage, and the fact that lots of people, whatever change we make, lots of people will just sort of get it automatically and will not be following what's going on in the Leica development, and so better to lean on the side of being careful here. And yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it'll be reasonable, and there's other ways there's other ways we can sort of address the problem maybe in the future. But yeah, that's my current thought on it. Yeah. All right, I think I'm gonna be wrapping it up here. Yeah. Oh, just one more question. Okay, this is a good one. How can we envision web components integrating with Calico's reactive model? Should they behave like signals, more like effectful event streams? So I think basically the integration should like be similar to how it's working with non-web components. So we can actually go over it right now, which is like, for example, in this. Oh yeah, so we have a couple things. This is actually like the HTML for like the main page here. So it's not any one specific component. So, for example, we have this like validation button, and the way that the validation button works is it's taking this validated, which is a signal, which we defined here. So the validated is a signal, and it's mapping the value of that signal into this class. And so depending on what comes back, it'll either map it to the invalid class or the valid class or the error class, or empty is when it's not even there at all. And this affects how the result renders of doing the validation check. So the reason that validated is a signal here is because you always have to have a value, right? Like, it's the point of validated is that it's a value that might be changing over time. Like, someone clicks the button and it causes the value to change, but there always is a value, right? Like right now the value is error. Yes, invalid. Sorry, right now the value is invalid. Error would be like if the API was down or something. So in fact, like we can even like, I don't know if there's a web inspector here, but if you did the web inspector, you would see the class is invalid. So signals are a really reasonable way to sort of like get data in, they're a good way to sort of take state, you could say, like in this case, the state is whether it's valid or not, and sort of map it into the UI, right? Meanwhile, streams are more like events. Like this on click here, this is actually a stream. And so in this case, there is no click value that's all the time. Like that doesn't make sense. A click is like an event. So that's why in this case it's a stream of events rather than a signal. So signals represent values. A value always exists. It's always one of these things. Like it's either valid or not valid or hasn't been checked yet or there's been an error. Like that's always true. And it's just it happens to change as the user interfaces with the app. But for button, there's no, I mean, I guess, and I think there might be some things where on click is an event. Like this is a click event. There's no so that's why this is modeled. That's why this model is a stream. It's representing a discrete event. So coming back to your question, which is, how do we envision the integration? It should be similar to this, which is both. You should use signals where it's appropriate to use a signal, which is usually for stuff being rendered as part of the component. And you should use streams or event streams for events that happen like when you're interfacing with the component. And this is already sort of the pattern as well. And sort of going back to the main thing there was like, we do really want to just have the same sort of seamless experience that we already have for existing HTML things. So good question. All right, I'm gonna be wrapping things up because that's the end of an hour, but we may hold one more of these events before March 16, and definitely we'll be in touch afterwards as well with all of you. Thank you to everyone who's contributed to the onboarding and participated, and we're just really glad to have you here and excited to be working with you. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your days or nights or whatever time zones you're in. I gotta stop presenting and stop the recording, and then we can